Hello, everyone, and welcome to RVATECH Small Business Monday, where today I'm going to be talking to Jimmy Chou, CEO of SingleStone, about trust-based communications, both internally and externally. And the reason I wanted to talk to Jimmy today is because over the last year or so, I'd noticed that their digital marketing presence had really picked up. You know, I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn as a recruiter and had started to just see some great communication coming out of SingleStone. And then most recently, I saw them, doing some great posts and communications about COVID-19. So Jimmy luckily agreed to talk today. And what I found out was that when he took over as CEO, he had made some key decisions at that point that had put them in a really good position to quickly respond to COVID. So a little bit about Jimmy. Jimmy has over 20 years of broad-based industry experience and some deep hands-on knowledge in financial services and insurance. His inspiring vision of solving problems for today while focusing on opportunities of tomorrow helps transform their clients' businesses. He loves solving big problems for his clients and their teams. And something on a personal note that's not on his bio, but that I happen to know, is that Jimmy is an excellent tennis player and was captain of his tennis team at Wake Forest University. I first met Jimmy years ago at Westwood Racket Club when I was playing tennis. And I was so fortunate because one time he agreed to play mixed doubles with me when I asked. And he was so supportive and a great tennis player. And you can tell a lot about a man's character by the way he treats his woman tennis partner, because the reality is most men just don't enjoy mixed doubles. So thank you for that, Jimmy, and welcome, and really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure, Laurie. Thank you for having me. Did we win? I don't remember when we played together.
Well, we did, because you were so much better than everybody else on the court.
That's not true. I just want to know that we won.
Even though they hit all the balls to me, but yeah. So why don't you start by telling us how long you've been at SingleStone and when you first became the CEO?
Yes, happy to. Well, first of all, I'm grateful to be here. That question is kind of like asking someone their age now. For me anyways, because I've been at SingleStone for such a long time. So I think it's been, I'm looking at Chris Little, so he's on right now. It's been, yeah, he's right there. I got to look away. It's been 14 years since I've been at SingleStone and CEO for the last 2.5 years. So it's been a great opportunity for me, and I'm grateful to be part of the team.
Great. Well, when you became CEO, what initial goals did you set for your team, for the leadership?
That's a good question, because it doesn't feel like that long ago, 2.5 years ago, but I think it sets the right context if I also mention the foundation a little bit. The fact that Chris is on the phone is a key part of all of this, right? In that I had this rare opportunity to take over a company that was so successful for 20 years. And that's what SingleStone was. For those that don't know Chris, he was our founder. He's a close friend, mentor, and led the firm into great reputation of delivering exceptionally well for our clients, building deep, trusted relationships with the market, and cultivating a culture that was all about caring for our employees. These were all things we wanted to keep. And so looking back now, when you think about it, the transition was super special because we hear a lot about founders transitioning to CEOs, and it just doesn't go as naturally, as smoothly as ours did. And that's important for me to mention because it was such a big part of the beginning, right? So that foundation of trust empowered me from the very beginning to cast a new vision, an evolution of who we were. And that vision very much centered around deepening our expertise to drive growth. And so a scale of growth that was very different than anything that we'd experienced before in the past. And, when we think about that expertise, it's a key part of a few of the dimensions of what we've done these last couple of years. Caroline Watson, who's also on the phone, was a key part of the investment in marketing. We knew that if we wanted to grow, we had to invest in marketing. We knew we had to invest in our growth drivers in sales. And then lastly, it was very much about a change in mindset. A mindset that for a lot of small businesses, I think there's a scarcity mindset where it's all about conserving what we have. And we shifted very much so to one that was about abundance and growth and opportunity. And when I talked to our team at the very beginning and we talked about, who do we want to be? So much of it came down to not necessarily being the biggest. And so the growth wasn't about being the biggest consulting firm, but it was about being the best at what we do. And so we doubled down on our expertise areas like cloud, DevOps, data, machine learning, design, and user experience as a way to drive better experiences for the custom software that we're building. So all of those things kind of wrapped up in this foundation of trust that we were able to start with.
Great, thank you. We all know Chris Little. And now the good news is probably part of this growth too is Chris is able to go out there and do business development a lot more.
Absolutely.
And he's so good at that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, thank you for those comments. I think a lot of us right now are in that same position trying to figure out how to invest. We're all wanting to hold on to our money and wait it out, but it's probably, we have the time and thinking about the future. Bless you. All right. What are some of the big challenges you encountered?
Oh my gosh. There are so many challenges. I think, I just talked about, there were 3 things that we were investing in and growing, and there's a big vision. But if you're familiar with sports, there's a guy named Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson at one point said that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And that's how I felt kind of the first quarter as CEO, because we lost some large client opportunities and client engagements. I recently wrote a blog post about trust and also a key decision I had to make related to a mismatch between supply and demand with our team. I think today isn't the time for me to go too deep into that, but I think the challenge and then the response that we had in that moment is relevant because for us, that was a mini crisis. It felt like a big crisis at the time, but relative to the crisis we're all in together right now, it was quite small. But we had to make a choice. At that point, do we retrench? Do we play defense? Or do we look at our areas of expertise and drive more towards that vision? And we did choose to invest. I mean, the challenge at that moment in time was so big for us. And we took some of the excess capacity that we had and we looked at the vision that we set for ourselves in terms of the expertise that we wanted to really, really be the best at. And what came out with our team was 2 things in 2 months, where we came out with new service offerings that are still very much a core part of what we do, very much connected to all of our technology solutions. One of those is Reverb. And so the immersive training custom solution that came out of a lot of questions coming from our clients, but then the innovation from our team to bring that to market. And over the last 2 years, that's evolved quite a bit, but it is a big part of why we continue to grow as a firm. The other piece, which I won't go into too deeply, is related to our custom dashboard visualizations and building an accelerator, again, over a 2-month period to create a new product offering for ourselves that continues to be a key part of who we are. I share those 2 stories because not necessarily for our marketing and sales benefit, but to show that in this moment of crisis, when there is so much challenge, a key part of who we are today as a firm is about what are the actions that we can take? What can we control out of this so that we can drive the next wave of growth? And when I look at this long list of people who are also here, I also think about, a lot of these folks are familiar, and I hope everyone is kind of taking that opportunity right now to not just retrench and conserve and preserve, but to seek those opportunities for growth as we're going to be in an extended period of likely economic downturn.
Thank you. I think it's really hard. It's scary, not knowing when this is going to end, but thank you for that insight. It helps give me at least some incentive to go out there and do some things I've been wanting to do. All right. Did you foresee how your changes would impact the company long term? And if so or not, how did you see some of these decisions driving your organization today?
I think if you know me and the folks that I'm looking at here, a few of you know me, I'm fairly honest. So, we people as humans generally can look backwards and create a narrative that neatly kind of connects together to say, I knew what we were doing, and here are the steps that we took to get there, and look at where we are now. It didn't happen that way at all. So I think we certainly were guided by some principles related to that deep expertise that I've been talking about. We had a few ideas on investment areas that we wanted to make, but the how over these last 2.5 years has been different and than we expected. The results have been different, sometimes better, sometimes worse. But that was the commitment we made together as a team, is to take a very evolutionary test and learn and a continue to learn approach to the market. Internally, we talk about our jobs as leaders a lot, and it's important because our jobs are not to be the best predictors, the best forecasters, but to point us into big movements and trends where we can lift with that overall trend, and being prepared to adapt along the way is really all we can do in terms of empowering our team to be successful. But looking back 2.5 years, we've been lucky in a lot of ways to be connected to and have a team that is so talented. And now, right, so in this crisis, to have clients who are still working with us, who choose to spend the time with us to tell us what's most important to them here, and also now kind of way across the world, getting calls to help with some key challenges. Like that's pretty cool. Like in the last 2.5 years, I think we've gained over 20 new clients. And at the same time, I know this is really important for Chris, and really important for me. We've maintained our high customer satisfaction. We maintained and even improved upon our employee engagement. And so I sure as heck didn't know at the time how things were going to play out. And I will tell you really honestly that today, this moment we're in right now is super hard. It's difficult. I've never actually felt as much accountability, as much ownership for who we are and what we will do to come out of this, because it's actually really, really difficult. And I know I don't have to tell all of you that as small business leaders. I think we're in this together, but it's neat to look back to see what we have accomplished. And I think I encourage everyone here to kind of take that same look every once in a while. And preparing a little bit this morning for this conversation helped me with kind of seeing some of the things that we've done. And so thanks for having me. I think these next 20 years, I'm not quite sure how they're going to go either. Right now, we're trying to go day by day.
Great, thank you. I think we're all trying to go day by day, so thank you for that. What was your initial response when COVID-19 began to grow, both internally and externally?
Yeah, feels like forever ago,
I
Laurie.
know.
But it was, I'm counting, I think that
6 weeks. 6 weeks? 5? Yeah.
7 weeks ago. And I think the question was kind of internally and externally. I think we had a very trust-based approach to all of it. Internally, I think it was in a matter of 48 hours. We went from sending out a note to our whole team to say, hey, all you folks who are traveling all the time, we got to stop. We're going to stop travel. And then a day later, and that's what it was, a day later, I remember it was a Thursday, we said, we are not going to travel. And you know what? We're all going to work from home from now on. We don't know how long at that moment in time, and we still don't. But that's how fast it changed. But we talked like crazy incessantly and communicated over these last 7 weeks as we've been working from home. I think we've done a lot of things that you will read about others doing in the market as well. We have a dedicated Slack channel. We have happy hours and demos at the end of the week. We have communications from leaders and one-on-one. But what's important is that it comes from a basis of caring for our team. And what we are wary of and what we see a lot of is what we started to call transparency theater, right? In that there's one thing to be transparent because that's what you think you should do, but it's a bunch of tactics if you're not connected to your overall purpose. Like, what are you trying to achieve? And for us, it's about continuing to build and earn trust from our team. What's just as important, if not more important for us, is kind of how we've responded in the market. And how do we talk to our clients? That same time frame that we were 48 hours, we were communicating with our team. We were actively reaching out to our clients. We were trying to figure out, are you okay? Are you safe? What actions are you taking? What might we learn from your activities? And sharing what we were doing helped us to learn. And at a time when no one really knew, like, what's the playbook? Priorities were changing so quickly. And what was, a silver lining from all of it through those conversations with clients, I think, I personally had over a dozen calls in the first 2 weeks with clients to really understand how things were going. And I know the rest of our team were doing the same thing. And I'm not sure if Kate is on this right now, but Kate Cooper is a personal friend, but also now leads a content design agency. And she always talks about how content needs to be a gift to whoever who's reading it. And that's exactly how we view our interactions with our team and our clients. And it starts with that trust of who are they as people? What do they care about as people? How might we serve them as people? And then from there, I think the business opportunities may or may not flow from that. And if COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's the importance of people, relationships. And so while I talked about how important it was for us early on, 2.5 years ago, to double down on expertise, the reality is in this moment in time, our expertise plays a part in all of it, but it's more about the people and the relationships. And because of all of those many conversations, I think we've been fortunate in that we have absolutely seen projects slow down, projects stop. And at the same time, we've seen projects start and new opportunities come out of those early conversations 7 to 8 weeks ago, because we took the time to inquire how things were going. And that communication with our team, with our clients, with our market, feels very natural. because of the people we are and the clients that we have. And I watched a bit of your interview with Andrea, and you talked, Laurie, about how it might feel sleazy to be selling during this really difficult, challenging time. But when we go back to the gift, right? So if it is a gift, if it is valuable to make those connections, then it's not really about sales. It's about how do we get through this together. And it sounds actually really lame when I say it out loud, but it is what we're driven by. It's that value orientation on the people that we're serving, the people we're connected to, the basis, the foundation that now is 22 years long for us as a firm. I know every single person on this, the 31 people who are here, have those same relationships with your customers, with your teams. And now is the time to tap into that foundation of trust.
Thank you. And for y'all, I don't know, check out SingleStone's website. I think it's pretty amazing. And that 13-page letter you did, Jimmy, I first saw it on LinkedIn when you were asking people, you were so brave to say, hey, what do you think? And I don't know how many people responded or anything, but I thought that was really cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the way you're communicating? Because I really, really appreciated that.
Well, thank you. I think that was 13 pages. Wow. Thanks for counting.
I think it's substantial though.
Yeah. Usually I'll write too much and have to get it cut. So a lot cut. And I won't talk too much about the paper or the reaction from it. I think it was helpful for me to get it all out. What we found from the people who have read it, our clients who contributed to it, and then the clients who read it afterwards, was just an acknowledgement that banks right now and insurance companies right now, which was a big part of the paper, have a unique opportunity to be part of the solution in a way that they weren't a part of. If we remember back to the last big recession that we had. And so to know that there is a very opportunistic way to look at things and to be part of something really, really meaningful meant a lot to the folks who worked in banking and insurance. And then what I'll mention here, which is not about me, it is about SingleStone. It's very much about our marketing leader. Caroline Watson, who's on the phone, was a big part of the engine that we have right now in marketing. We said 2.5 years ago we wanted to invest in marketing, but we had no idea what we were doing. 20 years in, we really had no idea anything about marketing. And we experimented with a few things. Fortunately, we hired Caroline, and she's still part of the team. And over the last year, she's helped us to create a framework, a point of view on marketing, how to connect all of the expertise that we do have. So we've invested in our expertise. Now, how do we connect it really thoughtfully and intentionally to the market? And these were things that we started last year. And so that's why the engine is working the way it is, and as naturally as it is, even with the crisis that we're in right now. COVID-19, if anything, helped us fuel our investment in marketing more, so that we can get the helpful content out there that hopefully is a gift for the folks who are reading it. But all of the credit needs to go to Caroline, who's the brains, and also somehow figures out how to execute so much of it, working with our crazy team.
Yeah, Caroline, thank you for introducing me. I had a fantastic conversation with her. I was so excited. And she did give kudos to her, because she did help prepare us for this conversation. It was pretty easy, because she just sent everything to me while she was moving, by the way, across to Texas. So she's pretty amazing. And the things that I've seen over the last year, you know, I found out that Caroline was really responsible for a lot of those. So congratulations, Caroline. Great job. All right. How are you keeping your teams optimistic but grounded right now?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we are, but there's a lot of, you know, when I think about that question, there's a lot of wisdom just in the question, Laurie. And so I'll maybe share a little bit about what we're doing, but I've said it a few times. We're figuring it out as we go. There isn't a playbook that we're tapping into because this is a crisis that's different than anything that we've experienced. But what we do is we trust our team enough to start with the current reality, right? So we talk about here's where we are, and we do remind us that, you know, we've experienced a lot of crises over 22 years as a firm, and we're still here. And so there's some hope and optimism in that. We usually follow that up with, we're also really clear that this is a crisis that is very different in terms of the depth and the wide range of health and economic implications that exist. And we share that reality and that understanding of reality with our team because everyone understands that's where we are. And so the not talking about it doesn't make it less true. And then we talk about how we can't just buckle down and we can't just muddle through this thing, which is a normal reaction. In prior downturns, we could do that, right? We could just say, we're going to preserve what we have and we're going to conserve what we have. And that's our primary focus. But because the shock is so different, our approach this time is to talk about a combination of preservation. So we have to preserve the core. And at the same time, we have to find new areas for growth. And, you know, I keep a sticky note on my monitor right here that shows that polarity of growth and preservation, because both are so critical for us right now. So the question about, you know, how do we keep our team optimistic is really a conversation about just being really honest about where we are, and then creating an environment that allows us to say we do have some control over our own destiny. Number one is every single day our team is on projects delivering for our clients. That doesn't change regardless of the crisis, and that it means even more now coming to work, walking to work now in my 2x2 office. You know, we get to deliver value every single day, and we're grateful for that for our clients and for our teammates. And we have to center ourselves around that. And then we have to look at it as, you know, we've learned that in crisis are also opportunities. And so we are spending the time right now, you know, across our leadership team and soon engaging with the rest of our team to talk about the key things that have to change, that will change, so that we find that next wave of growth for the next 20 years. And so thinking about things in big chunks of time starts to put this crisis a little bit in perspective, because we don't know how things will end, but we know that things will end at some point related to the crisis. And we want to be part of the solution. We want to be part of the team that is helping things get better for our clients and for our communities. And it's a tough question you asked, and I'm not even sure I answered it. But those are a few of the things that are going through my mind in the communications that we have with our team.
I think that's great. And that, you know, I think the good thing, the gift that some of us older folks have on here or more experience is that we've been through the downturn of 2008, 2009. I went through the .com, you know, bomb back in early 2000s. And we know that although it's hard and it's difficult, that we keep got to keep doing things and that it will get better. And I think that's what we need to communicate and share with others. And yeah, and it's harder to do on video than it was before when we could just have coffee meetings. I'm still missing my coffee meetings and cannot wait to get back out there.
Have you started doing coffee meetings virtually and lunches and dinners, all that stuff?
No, the only thing that I've done is some happy hours. I had fun, by the way, on the RVATECH one last week when we did trivia. I didn't get anything right, but it was fun. And I've done some walks. I think I shared with that on my first one. I've, like you live really close to me, Jimmy, so we haven't done that, but you're walking, I'm walking. We can just go, hey, let's meet for a walk and have some talk, have a chat when the weather, is good enough. But I'm just having a lot more conversations and I'm meeting more people on video, which I would normally do over the phone. So that's helpful. I don't know. I like everybody's so willing to talk right now and share ideas. So thank you. All right, I've got one more last question, and then I want everybody else, be prepared. There's some chat. There's a Q&A box and a chat box if you want to ask some questions for Jimmy, or you can, you can show your face. That would be great. It's good for networking.
Please.
And you can ask a question directly if you choose to do that. I see some people popping on. Thank you. Don't be scared. And if you just have something you want to share, I mean, this is about sharing experiences. It's not about, just Jimmy talking. If you want to share some things you've learned or you've noticed, we'd love to hear that too. So my last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to everybody else, is what advice would you give to small businesses right now?
So I knew this question was coming, so I tried to prepare a little bit. But I'll lead with that I'm not qualified to be giving advice to other small business leaders, because what we found is that when you're giving blanket advice without context, it's actually not that helpful, and it might be really dangerous. So just like everything else kind of in this 30 minutes we spent together, I'll share a little bit about the way we're thinking about things, and maybe that'll be helpful too. There are three things. I think first for us is we talk about finding our new zone. And in sports, and so Laurie talked about tennis earlier. In sports, there's this thing called being in the zone. There's a lot of research about it, where the zone is a place where things slow down. You see the field in a different way. The basketball hoop looks like it's this big when you're shooting it. The tennis ball looks like it's this big. And it's a great place to be. And if you don't play sports, we've all found our zone when it comes to work. Sometimes it's called flow, when things just feel easier. Well, COVID-19 just knocked us right out of that zone. Every single one of us right out of that zone. But it's been 7, 8, 9, 12 weeks for some, right? So now's the time to reorient around where we are. I think Brene Brown talked about it as settling. We have to settle now into this current reality, and then find our new zone. And it's likely going to be different than the last zone that we were in before. And so that's number one for us, and leads to a key second point. And that's to not be paralyzed from this really, really human response to just conserve and preserve. And self-preservation absolutely is a key part of what's necessary. And for most of us small businesses, self-preservation is about conserving cash. It's about reducing expenses. But like I mentioned earlier, this is not a normal crisis. This is not something that will end tomorrow. And whenever it ends, there's going to be an extended period of time. And that horizon is so wide right now that we can't just stay in the box that we're in. We have to find new ways to grow. I was sitting on my couch just over there over the weekend, and I saw a headline come through. And I took note because it said something like, get outside and plant something. Because if you go out there and grow something now, one, you have control. And two, it's something that you can do to think about the future. And I wrote it down because I thought it was interesting. It was by some professor who is in horticultural therapy. Who knew there was such a thing as horticultural therapy? But for us right now as a small business, we need to be out there planting something. We can't just conserve. We have to go plant. We have to grow something new. And so that's scary, but it's also exciting when we think about what could be next. And then lastly, ask for help. I think we are all so proud, and as small business owners, even more proud because we are entrepreneurs. We can do it on our own. But I've been so heartened to see kind of the way the whole world is coming together. But in Richmond, what is really neat to see is the business community coming together. And I'm part of a technology consulting community. I'm not from Richmond, but what I've found kind of in this moment in crisis where Richmond isn't a great, easy place to break into. It's home. I love Richmond. But what I've found is that as I've reached out to other consulting firm leaders, we're all trying to help each other out right now. Sometimes one company may have a whole lot of demand. Another may have a whole lot of supply in terms of a big team. We're finding ways to partner together in a way like we've never talked about before in the past. And that we have to do more of that. We have to be vulnerable enough to ask for help and then to offer help. And that's probably the last thing that I'll mention, because we have to remember that business doesn't necessarily have to be a zero-sum game. It's not the way I like to live. It's not the way we like to operate. So please do ask for help. Reach out to someone else for help. Reach out to help someone else. Laurie has my number, has my contact information. If you ever need anything, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk, love to catch up, and I'm sure we can find a way to help each other out.
Thank you, Jimmy. And just knowing Jimmy, he does mean that. I'm just not just saying it.
Yeah.
So thanks. So you pointed out one of my favorites, Brene Brown, and I really appreciate that. She's somebody, I know a lot of people on here probably listen to her. She's got some great posts right now, some podcasts, a new series about vulnerability. And I encourage anybody, that's a great resource. And all right, so I've got a question from Logan Bragg. And he said, is there one group video activity that you did with your team that you thought was creative and unique and the team enjoyed it?
I'm not sure if there is one group activity. Maybe I'll mention a couple. One that was super inspirational for me that I heard about, I wasn't invited to, was a group activity that came out of our women's leadership initiative at SingleStone. So I got to see a picture of the fun that everyone was having over the virtual happy hour. What was neat about it wasn't that it was a virtual happy hour. It was just that the team took the opportunity and the time to pull a subgroup together and share how things were going. And I thought that was cool. Not necessarily unique nor creative, but I think super impactful for that team. I still wish I get invited to these things, but I don't. The other group activity that I thought was a great idea from our team was to begin having weekly demos. So as a consulting firm that is generally distributed anyways, right? So our team is always working on different projects. And at any given time, there are a lot of projects happening. And we're not as connected as we'd like to be. And so now we've started to piggyback our weekly Friday updates where we provide an update on what's going on in the state of the business, client projects, cash flow, sales. all of those things in a lot of detail. We end though with a demo where 1 to 2 teams volunteer and sign up and provide an overview of what they're doing, the problems they're solving, what we're learning, and then demoing whatever it is that we're building, designing, creating for our clients. And that to me is super important because it's not just creative and fun. It is a ton of fun to watch, but it's about the business. It's connecting our team again with what we can do every single day, and that's to deliver value for our clients. So that was a whole lot that we think is useful and enjoyable, but not necessarily creative or unique. I think sometimes you don't have to have the most unique of ideas to actually execute on something that brings the team together.
Thank you. I got another question. So Michael Boynton, did I say that right? Michael Boynton, from Visual Communications, ask, any general advice on setting up a marketing plan? We are an AV event production company and have been around for 50 years and have never really marketed before. We've been looking at options, but are unsure how to start.
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you, Michael. And if I may actually do something unconventional here. If Caroline is still on the phone, would love for her to jump in and provide a little bit of context on maybe first steps related to a marketing plan.
Yeah, I'm live. You might hear a couple chirps from kids. We're making lunch over here. Yeah, so Jimmy, can you refresh my memory just on what the industry is, what the business is?
It is an AV event production company.
Oh,
and they've been around for 50 years. Very cool. Impressive. Congratulations, Michael.
So I think it's all about, who is your customer, where is your customer, and then figuring out, since you've been around for 50 years, what's your unique selling proposition? What makes you unique against your competitors? And then starting small. So what's one incremental way that you can, hold on one second, sweetie, that you can make a difference, or one way that you can test growth? And then from there, just kind of figuring out, what do you have? What can you use that you don't need to start from scratch? You don't need to do digital marketing. Maybe you can just grow regionally, and what are some initial ways that you can test that? But yeah, I mean, it's really about taking a hard look at what your business is, who does something similar to you, what you bump into, and then where you have room to test and experiment and grow. For us, it was pretty straightforward. We already had a legacy. We had a great business in Richmond. So it was really about updating who we were, refreshing our brand, and then from there, again, using what we had. So for us, technology is our sweet spot, and we're lucky enough to have a bunch of fantastic technologists. So we just leaned into that, and we went at it from a strategic standpoint of leveraging content and leveraging the people that work with us. So prior to COVID, we were marching towards a big investment in conferences, and then pairing that with content and video that supported those efforts. But in the midst of COVID, we pivoted. So we are going, leaning in on content and all the places that we can use some of those pre-existing ideas in a different way. So, it's really about looking at what you have and figuring out where you can grow. Happy to chat further if you have specific questions outside of that.
Thank you. And that's right, Michael, and that we're happy to connect. And we have a group of advisors who have been super helpful for us to bounce ideas off of. If you reach out to me afterwards, we'd be happy to connect you as well. And I'm sure they'd be happy to support.
Great, Jimmy, thanks. Are there any other questions, or does anybody want to share something with us about their experience? You good? I'm looking. No more down here. Okay, well, we're at 12:45, perfect timing. Hey, well, I really appreciate, Jimmy, you joining us today and sharing your experiences with us. And looking forward to seeing some of you the rest of the week. We have, I don't know, we have one tomorrow on telemedicine, I think, that Nick's going to be hosting. So check out our schedule, and don't forget, you can find some of Jimmy's. Look at the SingleStone website. I think it's fantastic. Their message right now on COVID-19 and some of the content they're putting out there. All right, thank you everybody, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone.